The torches flickered low in the stone corridor, casting long shadows that danced across the walls like restless spirits. Each step Lyra took echoed too loudly in the silence, the slap of her bare feet on cold flagstones, a cruel reminder that she was alone. Not just now, always. She clutched the edges of the ceremonial shift that hung limply from her shoulders, a thin, translucent fabric that offered no warmth, no dignity, and certainly no protection. It had been meant for a more worthy Omega, one bred for courtly grace, not for gathering herbs in the forest or muttering to ghosts the villagers claimed weren't there. 2 guards flanked her. Neither spoke, neither looked at her. To them, she was already nothing. A rejected offering, a body to be delivered. The heavy doors at the end of the corridor loomed closer. Beyond them, the great hall of Veilguard, where the Alpha King waited. Lyra's throat tightened. Her body buzzed with adrenaline and dread, a cocktail so sharp it made her vision swim. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was never meant to stand among the offerings, the carefully perfumed and braided daughters of noble packs, trained from birth to please, to submit, to be chosen. She had been dragged from her cottage 2 nights ago. The village elder, brittle-eyed and trembling with fear, had stammered through the decree. Their protection from raiders required a tribute, and the rest of the pack's daughters had conveniently fallen ill. The truth was simpler. They had sent her because she was unwanted, because if the Alpha King rejected her, they could still say they had complied. And if he accepted, she would be gone. Their cursed, half-mad problem, gone. The doors groaned open. Heat rolled out from the hall, not comforting warmth, but oppressive, heavy like the breath of a beast waiting in the dark. Lyra stepped inside, and the room silenced. Dozens of figures lined the walls, nobles in wolf-stitched cloaks, warriors with silver in their hair, and omegas draped in shimmering silks, kneeling in rows before the dais. Their scents, sweetened and spiced, filled the air. She saw them glance at her, then glance away. Like she was something that didn't belong, a wild thing loose in a palace. She felt the weight of their judgment, their expectation that she would be passed over, dismissed, discarded. She didn't blame them. She looked like a wraith. Her hair hung loose and tangled over her shoulders, pale and unadorned. Her skin, kissed by the forest sun, bore smudges of dirt no one had allowed her time to wash away. And the shift, gods, the shift, clung to her like dew to a dying leaf. Lyra swallowed hard, heart pounding. She should have bowed her head like the others. She should have lowered her eyes. But instead, she looked up and saw him, the Alpha King, seated high on the blackstone throne, his posture lazy and regal all at once. His frame was massive, clad in dark leathers, shoulders wrapped in fur. A silver crown circled his brow, sharp and heavy as the blade at his side. His expression was unreadable. Except for his eyes, they were gold, and they were locked on her. A hush fell so absolute it felt like the entire hall held its breath. Lyra stopped walking. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Not because she was afraid. She had expected fear. But this was something else. He rose, not fast, not slow, just deliberate, controlled. Each step he took down from the throne felt like thunder in her bones. A handler, a woman in ceremonial black, rushed forward, whispering anxiously into his ear. He didn't even glance at her. He passed the other Omegas without a second look, and stopped in front of Lyra. She stood as tall as she could, which wasn't very tall at all. But God's help her, she would not bow, not when the fire in her chest burned hotter than her fear. The Alpha King studied her, long enough that the silence began to buzz. Then finally, he spoke. "This one." Gasps erupted around the room. Someone, a noble maybe, let out a strangled protest. Another handler fumbled a scroll, the parchment snapping against stone like a whip. "You may all rise," he said, loud enough to cut through the noise. "The choosing is complete." Lyra barely heard the rest. Guards appeared beside her like shadows, She half expected them to drag her away, to chain her. Instead, one simply nodded. "Follow us." She obeyed, legs numb, chest heaving. As they left the great hall, she caught murmurs rising behind her like smoke. The cursed one. She wasn't even on the list. Why her? He never chooses himself. They led her through winding corridors deeper into the keep. The air grew colder, the stone older, as though they were walking into the belly of the mountain itself. Finally, they stopped outside a thick door of carved oak. The guards didn't look at her, just opened it. Inside, wait for him. And then, she was alone. The chamber was huge, lit by a massive fireplace that roared like a dragon. Furs lined the floor, weapons lined the walls. And at the center, a bed carved from the heart of a tree. Lyra stood still. The Alpha King had chosen her. But for what? What did enduring the night mean? Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "If ever the wolves come for you, child, don't let them take your mind. Your body is theirs by law. But your heart is yours. Don't give it, not unless they earn it." A slow, cold certainty slid into her chest. She had been chosen, but not as a mate, not as a queen. She was a test, a puzzle, a threat. And when he arrived, she would learn just how high the price of her freedom truly was. Before we dive into tonight's story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more werewolf fantasy stories just like this one, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love seeing how far our pack reaches. Now, let's begin. The heavy door creaked open behind her. Lyra turned just as the Alpha King stepped inside, closing it softly behind him. No guards, no fanfare, just him. The firelight danced across his features, casting half his face in flickering shadow. Up close, he was even more dangerous. Not just in size, though he was tall enough to make her feel small and slight, but in stillness. He moved like a predator who never needed to rush, who already knew he'd won. He didn't speak right away, just looked at her, eyes sharp, unreadable. Lyra straightened her spine, refusing to let the silence bend her. "You didn't kneel," he said at last. "I didn't fall," she replied. His brow twitched, not in anger. Amusement? Surprise? "Most Omegas lower their gaze in my presence. I'm not most Omegas." His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. So I noticed. She shifted her weight, trying to ignore the icy kiss of the stone floor against her bare feet. "Why did you choose me?" He stepped closer, slowly. Not to intimidate, she realized, but to study her. "I gave you the terms, didn't I?" he said. "Endure the night in my bed, and your pack will be spared. You'll be free." "And if I don't?" He raised a brow. "You won't leave this castle, and neither will the soldiers I send to your village." So that was it. Protection or punishment. Hers to decide. "But why me?" she pressed. "Why not one of them?" She gestured vaguely toward the direction of the hall, the silk-draped Omegas bred for beauty and compliance. "Because they were trained to please. You were trained to survive." Lyra flinched. That wasn't a compliment. It was an accusation, a fact. He turned, walking to a table near the fire. On it sat a tray, simple food, a carafe of wine, 2 goblets. "You're hungry," he said. "I'm fine." "You're lying." She didn't respond. He poured the wine anyway, lifting 1 goblet and offering it. She didn't take it. "Poisoned?" he asked, tilting his head. "You think I'd go through the trouble of choosing you, dragging you into my chambers only to kill you with wine? You think I'd trust the word of a king who collects Omegas like trophies?" That earned a true smile. Brief, dark, but real. "You're not afraid of me," he observed. "I am," she corrected. "But fear doesn't mean obedience." His smile faded. Silence settled between them like fog. He didn't press her to drink. He didn't press her to do anything. He just watched. And then finally, he spoke again, voice lower this time, thoughtful. "Your name is Lyra." She stiffened. "Did someone tell you that?" "No. You told me. In a dream." Her blood turned to ice. He took a sip of his wine, unfazed by her reaction. "I've seen you before," he said. "Not in this form. But your eyes, your voice. You stand at the edge of a burning field, surrounded by wolves. You reach for me, and then you vanish." Lyra said nothing, could say nothing. The dream, her dream, had haunted her since she was a child. "You're lying," she whispered. "No." He met her gaze. "I've dreamed it for 3 years." A heartbeat passed, then another. "Is this some twisted seduction?" she spat, anger rising. "Tell the broken little Omega she's special, destined, just to get her to spread her legs?" He set the goblet down with a quiet clink. "No." "Then what do you want from me?" Finally, the fire in him flickered. Not heat, not lust, purpose. "I want to know what you see." Lyra froze. "What I see?" "In your dreams, in the corners of your vision, in the spaces between this world and whatever lies behind it." Her mouth went dry. "You think I'm mad?" "No," he said calmly. "I think your blood remembers something this kingdom has long forgotten." She stared at him, barely able to breathe. "I think your grandmother knew it too," he added. Her heart lurched. "How do you—" "She was a sighted Omega, wasn't she? One of the last." She didn't answer. He didn't need her to. "I want the truth," he said. "And I believe you're the only one who can see it." Lyra stepped back, bumping into a carved stone pillar. "You brought me here to— what? Be your seer? Your spiritual pet? Your witch?" "I brought you here," he said softly, "because the moment I saw you, I knew you were the only one who could destroy me." She blinked. The air seemed to suck out of the room. "But also the only one who might choose not to." He moved then, slowly, quietly, until they stood just a breath apart. "I meant what I said, Lyra. If you endure this night, your freedom is yours. No binding, no claiming, no mark." "And if I say no?" she whispered. "I won't touch you," he said. "Not unless you ask." His gaze flicked downward, lingering on her collarbone, where beneath her shift, the faint scar in the shape of a crescent hid. He looked up again, and this time, his voice dropped into something almost reverent. "You have the mark," she gasped. "What do you know about it?" "Enough to know it only appears to those chosen by the old blood, the ones tied to the spirit realm, the ones who dream fire and howl with wolves under the moons." He took a step back. "You were never meant to be offered," he said. "You were meant to lead." Lyra stood frozen in place, her breath shallow as the Alpha King's words echoed in her mind. "You were never meant to be offered. You were meant to lead." Her fingers twitched at her sides, instinctively moving to the edge of the shift that clung to her collarbone. The crescent scar beneath it throbbed, not in pain, but in awareness, like it somehow knew it had been seen. "You don't know anything about me," she said, trying to summon steel in her voice, but it trembled. "You think one scar makes me special?" Kirin, no. The Alpha King, tilted his head slightly, studying her the way a wolf might study the crack in a hunter's trap. "It's not just a scar," he replied, calm and certain. "And I do know you, more than I should." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the pull between them, that strange electric current that had been building since she'd entered the great hall. "I've carried the same mark since I was 15, he said. Lyra's eyes widened. He tugged aside the collar of his black shirt and turned his head slightly. Right at the base of his neck, just beneath his collarbone, where the skin met muscle. A pale, silvery scar curved in the exact same crescent shape as hers. Identical. Her knees went weak, and she stumbled back, catching herself against the stone pillar. "No," she whispered. "Yes," he said softly. "It doesn't mean anything," she snapped. "It could be coincidence, birthmarks, injuries. Do you believe that?" She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because deep down, she didn't. She remembered the first time she saw her scar in the bath, barely 13, and how her grandmother had gone still. How she'd whispered, "Moonborn, spirits help us all." But Lyra had laughed it off, because believing meant admitting she was different, and being different meant being feared. "You've seen things," Kieran said, interrupting her thoughts. "Things no one else sees. Heard voices, had dreams that come true." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "You're not cursed," he said. "You're gifted. That's what the mad ones always say. You're not mad. You don't know that. I know you're the only person in that hall who looked at me without flinching, who didn't lower her eyes. That tells me everything I need to know." He took another step closer, his voice lowering. "I need you to trust me, Lyra." Her jaw clenched. Why would I ever do that? A long silence passed between them, and then he said something she never expected. "Because I trust you." That stopped her cold. "You shouldn't." "I already have." The tension shifted, became heavier, charged with something new, something ancient. Lyra's fingers moved again, grazing her collarbone, pressing against the scar beneath the fabric. "It's just a mark," she muttered, more to herself. But Kieran was already moving, already reaching for something on the table beside the fire. When he turned back to her, he held a thin, rolled parchment in his hands, its edges worn, its center covered in faded ink and old symbols. He unrolled it and held it out for her to see. The illustration at its center sent a jolt through her chest. A wolf, standing beneath a crescent moon, a scar etched across its shoulder, glowing silver. Beside it, a woman cloaked in flame and shadow, her palm outstretched, a crescent glowing at her collarbone. Underneath, written in the old tongue, "When the two bear the same mark, the veil shall lift, and balance will return." "I found this in the royal archives," Kieran said quietly. "Most dismissed it as myth." "And you didn't?" "I couldn't. Not after I started dreaming of you." Lyra's heart thundered. "I don't want this," she said. "This fate, this bond, I didn't ask for it." "You think I did?" he countered. "You think I want to wake up every night with fire in my veins and your name on my lips, not knowing if you're real or another echo of madness?" She stared at him. He looked raw, unmasked, not the king, not the predator, just a man haunted by something he couldn't explain. And for the first time she saw it, the cracks beneath his control, the weight of being the alpha king, the silence, the burden. "You didn't just choose me out of curiosity," she said slowly. "You chose me because something in you knew I was the one from your dreams." He nodded once. "I had to be sure." Lyra sank onto the edge of the fur-draped bed, her legs barely supporting her anymore. The fire crackled behind him. Shadows moved along the stone walls like ghosts. And still, she couldn't stop thinking about the scar, the parchment, the dreams, the weight of being chosen, not as an omega for breeding, but as something more terrifying. As a mirror, a match, a mate. "I still don't trust you," she murmured. "I don't expect you to." She looked up at him. "But I believe you." For a moment, something shifted in his expression. A flicker of relief, maybe even hope. But it was gone as quickly as it came. He stepped back, giving her space. "I won't touch you," he said, voice back to its steady, measured cadence. Not unless you ask. She raised a brow. You think I'm going to ask? I think, he paused. You're the only one who hasn't been told who you're supposed to be. That makes you dangerous. And you like dangerous things. I'm drawn to them. Doesn't mean I like what they do to me. Another pause. Another breath between them. Then, before he turned to leave, he added, You have until dawn to decide. If you endure this night, truly endure it, you'll have your freedom. And if I don't? She asked. His golden eyes met hers. Then we'll both be condemned to a bond that will never complete and never break. He stepped out into the corridor, the door shutting behind him. Lyra sat in the silence, heart pounding, the firelight dancing over the old parchment still spread beside her. She ran her fingers over the inked image of the crescent moon and the woman who bore its mark. Her mark. The fire had burned low by the time Lyra lay back on the massive fur-draped bed. She didn't sleep. Not really. Her body was still, but her mind churned. Every time her eyes closed, visions flickered like flashes of lightning behind her lids. The parchment, the crescent marks, Kieran's voice. If you endure this night, truly endure it, you'll have your freedom. But what did endure mean? She hadn't been touched, not even once, no claiming, no command. And still, something had shifted. It wasn't physical, not yet, but it was something deeper, older. The door creaked open softly. She sat up. Kieran stepped inside, his crown gone, his cloak folded over one arm. His black shirt hung open at the throat, revealing the edge of the mark they shared. He didn't wear armor, but he didn't need to. The way he moved said enough. She met his eyes as he approached. I'm not going to beg, she said. I didn't ask you to. I'm not going to submit. I don't want submission. That stopped her. He set his cloak over the back of a chair, then sat across the room from her, near the fire. The silence between them wasn't cold, it wasn't warm either, it just was. You expected something else, she said. Yes, he admitted. What? He paused. Resistance. She laughed bitterly. Congratulations. Kieran leaned back, studying her. The others I've chosen. How many? She cut in. He didn't flinch. None like you. That shouldn't have pleased her, but some traitorous part of her chest ached at the words. Why me? She asked again, quieter this time. If this is about a mark, or some old prophecy, why not keep me locked away until you can figure out what to do with me? Because keeping you locked away is exactly what everyone else has done. Her chest tightened. That mark, he said, gesturing to her collarbone, is older than this kingdom. It doesn't belong to my rule, or your pack. Or any court. Then what does it mean? That the blood in your veins remembers something we've forgotten. And you want to use it. He looked away. I want to understand it. Silence again. But this time it was gentler. The fire snapped softly in the hearth. The wind outside had stilled. Lyra drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. She was exhausted, not physically, but in her soul. Years of being called cursed. Years of pretending not to see things that weren't there. Of biting her tongue when shadows whispered truths no one else could hear. I used to talk to the trees, she said. Kieran looked at her, not with mockery, but with patience. When I was little, my grandmother said they listened. She said the oldest trees were wolves turned to wood, too wise to live in blood anymore. Do you still talk to them? She shrugged. I try not to talk to anything no one else can see. People get nervous. He didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss it. He just said, My mother used to say the same thing, about the trees. Lyra blinked. You had a mother? She died when I was 15. I'm sorry. She taught me to see the world in layers, he said. Not just what's there, but what's underneath. The bones of it. That sounds like something a sighted Omega would say. She wasn't an Omega. Silence. She wasn't anything, he added. Just a woman. Just kind. That made Lyra's throat tighten. The air shifted. Not in the room. In her bones. She sat up straighter, suddenly alert. Something was watching. Kieran noticed her stillness. What is it? She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes flicked toward the shadows near the far wall. And there, for just a moment, something moved. A flicker of silver fur, too large to be a dog, too silent to be anything natural, a long snout, glowing eyes, gone in an instant. She gasped, gripping the edge of the mattress. What did you see? Kieran asked, rising. She swallowed hard. It was a wolf. Kieran stiffened. A guard? She shook her head. No, not one of yours. Not physical. It was like a dream wearing a body. He didn't mock her, didn't question, just nodded. They're starting to come through. They? Her voice shook. The spirit wolves. They follow the sighted. They protect them, test them, warn them. Warn me of what? He looked at her, expression unreadable. That not everyone in this castle wants you to leave here alive. That landed like ice water down her spine. Who? She whispered. Too many, he said. There are those in my court who see your mark as a threat, who think your presence means the old ways are returning. And you? I think they already have. Lyra stood, crossed the room, stopped just a few steps from him. You said you wouldn't touch me unless I asked. I meant it. But you think we're bonded, mates. He nodded. You think I'm yours. I think I'm yours. Her breath caught. She reached out, touched his chest, just above the crescent scar. His heartbeat was thunder beneath her palm. Then endure the night with me, she said, without taking what you think you're owed. His eyes flared golden, but he nodded. Gladly. They sat together until the fire died. No chains, no claiming, no command, just silence, and something deeper than heat settling between them, something patient, something waiting. Morning had not yet come, but the weight of the night pressed down on the chamber like a second skin. The fire had dimmed to embers, a soft orange glow casting long shadows on the stone walls. Lyra sat in the massive bed, knees drawn to her chest, the fur-lined robe one of the guards had brought wrapped tight around her. It smelled faintly of pine and smoke, like him. Kieran hadn't left. He sat across from her on a wide wooden bench near the fire, elbows on his knees, his gaze distant. No crown, no armor, just a man. Watching the flames like they held the answers to questions even a king didn't know how to ask. She didn't speak, neither did he. But there was something alive in the silence now, something that curled between them like a spark waiting for wind. You haven't asked why I'm still here, he said finally. I assumed you were too stubborn to sleep. He huffed softly. Guilty. Or maybe you don't trust me not to run. He looked over at her. If you ran, the wolves would follow. She hesitated. Yours or mine? I suppose we'll find out. Lyra shifted, letting her legs stretch across the thick fur blanket. Her feet dangled just above the stone floor, toes curling against the cold. I dreamed again, she murmured. Kieran sat straighter. What did you see? I was standing on a cliff. The sea below was blood red. The moon was split in two, and something old was waking. He didn't respond, but the tightness in his jaw told her he recognized the image. You've seen it too, she said. Not exactly, but I've felt it. He rose, crossing to the table by the fire. He poured 2 cups of cider from a copper pitcher, the scent of cloves and apples drifting through the air. When he returned, he handed her a cup without a word. She accepted it, surprised at the warmth, at the simplicity. No commands, no seduction, just comfort. They drank in silence. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Why haven't you marked anyone before?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "You've had other Omegas. You're the Alpha King. They line up to be chosen." "I didn't choose them, not really." "But you've bedded others." His gaze met hers over the rim of the cup. "Yes. And? And none of them made me feel like I was standing at the edge of something vast and sacred and terrifying." Her throat tightened. "That's what you feel with me?" He set his cup down. "From the moment you looked me in the eye." Lyra stood suddenly, crossing the room with bare feet and bare truth. "Then why offer me freedom?" He didn't move. "Because I want to see what you choose when no one is forcing your hand." She stopped just in front of him. The air shifted, thickened. Their marks pulsed, her scar burning faintly, as if responding to his nearness, to her heartbeat. "I don't want to be owned," she said. "You won't be. I don't want to be used. Never. And I don't want to be claimed just because of some old prophecy or shared dream." His voice was rough, honest. "Then don't let me claim you. Let me earn you." She reached out, slowly, and touched the edge of his jaw with trembling fingers. He didn't flinch, didn't grab her, didn't lean in, just watched. Her hand slid upward, fingers threading lightly through the strands of his dark hair. Then she kissed him, not because he demanded it, not because she felt she owed it, because she wanted to know what it felt like to touch him without fear. His lips were warm, steady. He didn't deepen it, didn't push. He let her lead. And God's help her, that was what undid her. The permission, the restraint. She pulled back first, breathless. He didn't chase her. He just looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath again. "I don't know what this is," she whispered. "It's not a trap," he said. "It's not a game. It's a fire." "And fires burn," he nodded. "But they also warm. They cleanse. They transform." She sat back, heart pounding. Her body was reacting. She could feel it. The flush in her skin, the ache in her limbs. The magnetic pull in her blood, whispering mate, mate, mate. But her mind was screaming caution. "Promise me something," she said, voice shaking. "Anything. If I walk away at dawn, if I decide not to be yours." "You'll be free," he said instantly. "And your village will be protected. No tricks, no ties. Even if it breaks the bond?" He looked away for the first time. "If it's a real bond, distance won't break it. Only time might. And if it's not real, then we'll both be free." She believed him. That terrified her more than anything else, because if it was real, there was no going back. She set her cup down, walked to the bed, and pulled the blankets around her like armor. Kieran remained by the fire, not moving, not demanding, just waiting. As sleep pulled at the edge of her mind, she whispered into the darkness, "This fire between us, I'm afraid it'll consume me." And from across the room, his voice came soft and low, "Then we'll burn together." The Alpha King takes Lyra to the ancient Warden Stone, a relic said to reveal true mates. When they touch it together, visions flood her mind and confirm her place in a prophecy neither of them can escape. Dawn still lingered just below the horizon when Kieran entered the chamber again. Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, already awake. Neither of them had slept. Neither had tried. Their shared silence had become something unspoken, heavy, and expectant, like the hush before a storm breaks. Without a word, he extended a hand toward her. She looked at it, then at him, and took it. They moved through the winding corridors of the royal wing, deeper into the keep than Lyra had ever imagined places could exist. Past guard checkpoints, past locked iron doors, down into narrow stone staircases lit by ancient oil lamps that flickered like nervous candlelight. Kieran said nothing as they walked, but his grip on her hand never wavered. Firm, steady, like he feared she might vanish into the stone walls if he let go. Finally, they reached a circular chamber, a small domed room etched with symbols Lyra didn't recognize but felt humming in her bones. At the center stood a pedestal, and resting atop it, glowing faintly beneath a web of ancient silver veins, was a crystal orb the size of a wolf's skull. It pulsed, alive, waiting. "What is this place?" Lyra whispered. Kieran's voice was low, reverent. "The chamber of the Warden Stone." He stepped closer to the pedestal, gesturing to the orb. "This has been here longer than the castle, maybe longer than Veilguard itself." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. "I thought it was a myth," she said. "So did I," he replied, "until I touched it." Her eyes flicked to his. "And what did it show you?" "Nothing," he said quietly. "It remained still, cold." "And now?" He turned to her, gaze burning gold. "Now it hums when you enter the room." Lyra swallowed. She didn't want this. She didn't want fate clawing at her skin, didn't want prophecy coiling around her ribs like vines. But the fire from the night before still burned low in her chest, and somewhere beneath it was need. Not for power, not even for love, but for truth. Kieran stepped behind the pedestal and placed his palm against the orb. The crystal pulsed once, a soft glow of dull gold. A reaction, but not a revelation. He looked to her. "Together," he said. Lyra hesitated. "What if it shows nothing?" she whispered. "Then we walk away, and your freedom is yours." "And if it shows too much?" He held her gaze. "Then we face it together." She stepped forward. The orb seemed to breathe, light blooming and fading in time with her steps. When her fingers hovered above it, the air in the chamber shifted, pressure building behind her eyes, as if something on the other side of the veil stirred awake. She met Kieran's eyes, and placed her hand on the crystal. Light exploded, not a flash, a detonation. White and silver and gold flooded her vision, and the world tilted sideways. She felt herself falling, not backward, but inward. Visions clawed through her mind like wild wind, a throne room soaked in blood. Kieran, older, standing alone, his crown cracked. A massive wolf with crimson eyes pacing behind a veil of smoke. Lyra, wrapped in flame, her hands outstretched, spirit wolves racing at her sides. The moon splitting in half, the ground cracking beneath cities. Voices chanting her name in a language she didn't know, but understood all the same. Queen, seer, flame-bearer, a child in her arms, a traitor in Kieran's court, an enemy rising from the sea. Then a final vision. Kieran on his knees, blood on his hands, whispering her name like a prayer. And her, stepping forward not as an omega, but as a queen crowned in light and shadow, claiming him not as conqueror or claimed, but as equal. The vision vanished, the light snapped out, and Lyra collapsed to her knees. She gasped, body shaking, her palms still fused to the now dim crystal. Kieran was kneeling beside her in an instant, his hands on her shoulders. "Lyra, I saw everything," she breathed. "The wolves, the war, the child, the death, all of it." "I know," he said, voice tight. "I saw it too." They stared at each other in the hush. Only now did she feel the bond, real and raw, like a thread of heat pulling between them. Not lust, not magic. Something else. Truth. She pulled away, trembling. "I'm not ready. I know. This isn't just mating, Kieran. It's a destiny. It's war." He nodded once. "That's why I brought you here." She looked up at him, voice breaking. You knew I was more than a girl with a scar. I knew the moment you looked at me and didn't flinch. Silence stretched. Then he spoke again, quieter this time. You are the last sighted Omega, the bloodline of the old queens, the flame bearers, the seers of the realm. I thought your kind was lost. I thought I was just broken. No. His voice turned fierce. You were hidden, but not anymore. Lyra rose slowly to her feet, legs unsteady. She looked down at the warden stone, now silent. It had given them the answer. The question now was what to do with it. I can't go back to who I was, she whispered. Then don't. And if I stay? He stepped closer. Then you stay on your terms. No claiming, no binding, no throne unless I choose it. His voice was a vow. You will never kneel to me, Lyra. I want you to stand beside me. Her heart thudded painfully. You still give me a choice, even now. Especially now, he said, because if the warden stone speaks true. He lifted his hand, not touching her, just hovering near her cheek. Then you were never mine to take, only mine to earn. Lyra is given the freedom she was promised, no bindings, no claiming bite, no crown. But as she prepares to leave, she realizes that the cost of freedom is not always peace, and that walking away might mean more than she ever expected. The warden's stone chamber felt colder in the light of morning. They had said nothing on the long walk back through the castle, not because there were no words, but because neither dared speak them. The visions still throbbed in Lyra's mind, the moon splitting, wolves screaming, her own voice raised in command. But Kieran had kept his word. When they returned to his private chambers, guards stood ready at the door with a satchel of her belongings, a cloak, and a quiet escort waiting to take her back to her pack. Just like he'd promised. Lyra stared at the cloak as though it were a weapon. You're really letting me go? She asked. Kieran nodded, his face unreadable. As we agreed. No chains, no mark, no throne, just freedom. But the room felt emptier than when she first entered it. She took the satchel, holding it against her chest. They'll ask questions, she said, about why I returned. You can tell them you endured the Alpha King's bed and lived, Kieran replied evenly. They'll believe whatever version makes them feel powerful. And if they cast me out again? His jaw tensed. Then you won't be without options. A heartbeat passed. And if I wanted to stay? The question slipped out before she could stop it. He looked at her sharply. Hope flickered behind his eyes, but it didn't reach his voice. You said you weren't ready. I'm not, she said. But freedom doesn't feel the way I thought it would. He turned away, walking toward the hearth where the fire had burned low. You were raised believing freedom meant solitude, he said, his back to her. That love was a trap. That submission was death. You don't trust the bond between Alpha and Omega. Can you blame me? No, he admitted. I only want what you choose. And if I don't choose you? He turned to her then, golden eyes burning. Then I will live with it. But I will not lie and say it won't break something in me. The silence stretched again. Lyra walked slowly to the window, where the early light touched the mountaintops in pale gold. Her village was somewhere beyond those peaks. So was the council who'd offered her up like a broken trinket. So were the children who had watched her walk away in silence. She clenched her jaw. I'll need an escort. The passes will be snowed in. You'll have one, Kieran said. And supplies. She nodded once. Then I'll leave before the court stirs. Kieran stepped toward her again, but stopped just short of reaching her. And if the visions are true, she said, voice quieter now, and the kingdom does fall, will you still keep your word? Let me stay free? Kieran's expression darkened. I would burn before I forced you to return, he said. But if the time comes when I fall, she turned to him, surprised. What? He hesitated. If I die, the bond will pull you back, he said. That is the cost of a fated mate. Even unclaimed, the soul knows, the body knows. You will feel it. The words struck something deep in her. You think you're going to die? I think something is coming, he said. And if I'm not strong enough, someone will need to stand in my place. Her mouth went dry. You want that someone to be me. I want it to be your choice. She stared at him, chest tight, breath shallow. She had walked into his bed as a rejected offering. She was meant to be broken and returned. Instead, she had been seen. Not just wanted, but recognized. The freedom she'd demanded now stretched before her like a yawning void. Was that all it was? Just walking away? Then I'll go, she said, lifting her chin. Kieran's face didn't flinch. Of course. But I want a message delivered to my village before I arrive. He nodded. Say it. Tell them the Omega they sent to die stood before the Alpha King, and he offered her a crown. Tell them she walked away, not because she was weak, but because she was free. A flicker of pride crossed his face. You want to make them afraid. I want them to understand, she said. They will never own me again. Kieran stepped closer, close enough that his presence filled the air between them. His hand rose halfway, then dropped. Will you come back? He asked. Lyra's voice was steady now. If I do, it will be on my terms, not for your throne, not because of fate. And not because of love? She hesitated. I don't know what love feels like, but I know what being seen feels like now. That might be the start of it. They stood in silence a moment longer. Then, as footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, she turned to him and said, Goodbye, Alpha King. He didn't stop her, didn't plead, didn't follow. As the doors opened, Lyra stepped through them with her head high. But behind her, something unseen cracked open, not in Kieran, in herself. Outside, the wind bit at her cheeks. The escort waited with horses. One bowed his head. My lady. It was the first time anyone had called her that without sarcasm. Lyra pulled the cloak tighter and mounted the horse. As they rode out from the castle, she did not look back. But the mark beneath her collarbone pulsed, faint and warm. She didn't need to look behind her to know the bond remained. It was no longer a chain. It was a choice. Lyra returns to her pack, but nothing is as she left it. Whispers of rebellion stir across Veilguard. A rival alpha rises, one who knows who she is, and what she might become. As the visions intensify and alliances shift, Lyra is forced to choose between the safety of solitude or the fire of war, and possibly love. The wind over the mountain pass bit sharper than Lyra remembered. Her breath plumed in white clouds as she clutched the reins, the edges of her cloak snapping with each gust. Behind her, the guards Kieran had sent kept a respectful distance, but she could feel their eyes, watching, waiting. At the edge of the forest, her village came into view, small, cold, unchanged, except for the silence. No smoke curled from chimneys. No laughter echoed across the snow-covered road. No children ran between huts. Something was wrong. Lyra slowed her horse, eyes narrowing. The rejected Omega had returned home, but the home she knew no longer existed. Where is everyone? She asked the lead guard as they dismounted near the village's edge. Gone, he said grimly. Taken or hiding. There was a raid 2 nights ago. Her stomach twisted. Raiders? No. Not exactly. He exchanged a look with the others. What then? The Blackmane. Lyra froze. She had heard the name once, whispered in a tavern when she was still too young to understand. Alpha Theron Blackmane, a rogue alpha who had once challenged Kieran's father for the throne and lost. A man said to have been exiled, broken, and buried. Apparently not broken enough. What does he want? You. Lyra's hands clenched. Why? You saw the warden's stone. You touched it. That power. It marks you. The guard's voice lowered. If Blackmane can control you, he can challenge the throne. With a sighted Omega, his claim would be seen as legitimate, blessed by the old ways. She stepped back, breath catching. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about power, legacy, bloodlines. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered. Power never asks permission, the guard replied. They moved quickly through the village, but it was clear. This place had been picked clean. Doors splintered, storage raided, scent marks everywhere. Male, alpha, unclaimed. Lyra found her old cottage on the edge of the woods. It had been burned, half the roof caved in, snow blanketing the ash. Her grandmother's pendant pulsed softly at her throat, as if in warning. She fell to her knees before the wreckage, numb. Her home, gone. Her memories, ashes. I was too late, she said aloud, voice hollow. A crow cawed from a branch above. She looked up and froze. On the tree bark, carved deep, was a symbol. Two crescents mirrored, edge to edge. Not the mark of Kieran's bloodline, the mark of Blackmane. He wants you to know he's coming, said the guard. Lyra stood, fists clenched. Let him come. The guard blinked. What? Send word to the Alpha King. Tell him what happened here. He hesitated. You want to go back? No, she said. I want him to come here. Later that night, Lyra sat alone inside the only hut still standing. She lit a fire, the warmth doing little to chase off the chill inside her bones. The visions had returned. They came now as flickers in the flames, a crown shattering, a wolf bleeding beneath a crimson moon, a voice, hers, screaming in a language she didn't know. The warden's stone had shown her a future she didn't understand, but war was coming, and in the middle of it stood her. She rose to her feet, walking to the broken window. Snow fell silently outside, blanketing the blood and ruin in white. Lyra! The voice made her whirl, but it wasn't one of the guards. It came from the shadows beyond the trees. A figure stepped forward, tall, broad, wrapped in black fur, his hair wild and silvering at the edges. His eyes gleamed gold, not like Kieran's calm fire, but sharp and hungry, like blades. I've waited a long time, he said. Blackmane, she breathed. He smiled. And you, little Moonblood, I expected more. Lyra's heart pounded. You shouldn't be here. I go where I please. I answer to no king. You want to use me, he laughed. Use you? No. I want to crown you, make you what you were born to be. Your pawn. My queen. She spat at his feet. I'd rather burn. His eyes flared. Then you'd better pray the Alpha King gets here before I change your mind. With a snarl, he stepped back into the shadows and vanished. Lyra collapsed onto the floor as the visions slammed into her. This time, there was no fire, no war, just one image. Kieran, bleeding, kneeling before a throne of stone, and her voice, whispering, "This is the cost of freedom." With Blackmane's forces closing in, and Lyra caught between bloodlines, her fate must be chosen, or claimed. The Alpha King arrives, but not even love can stop what's coming. Only power, and the price of wielding it may be Lyra's very soul. The snow burned beneath Lyra's feet. She stood alone in the center of the village square, the last embers of her torch melting a circle through the frost. Around her, the ruins of home. Above her, the sky cracked open, clouds swirling like a beast in waiting. And in the distance, the sound of wolves, not just one, a dozen, more. They were coming. Blackmane hadn't bluffed. He meant to take her tonight, and with her, the throne. The pendant around her neck pulsed again, the wolf and moon symbol glowing faintly beneath her collarbone. Her grandmother's gift, her blood's truth. She had wanted freedom, but freedom came with power, and power always asked for sacrifice. She closed her eyes. "If you're going to take me," she whispered to the wind, "you'll have to bleed for it." The first scream came from the tree line. One of the guards, dragged from the shadows by something too fast to see. The second didn't scream. His body dropped in silence, throat torn, eyes wide. Then they swarmed in. Blackmane's warriors, feral, unmarked, half-shifted into beast form. They didn't march. They prowled, snarled, surrounded. At their center, Blackmane himself, taller than before, his coat wet with snow and blood. Lyra stood her ground. "You can't rule through fear," she called. "No," Blackmane said, "but I can win with it." He lifted his hand. The wolves charged. Steel clashed as Kieran's warriors burst through the opposite tree line, silent shadows wielding blades of silver. The Alpha King rode at the front, his black warhorse snorting steam, eyes glowing gold beneath the hood of his cloak. Lyra's heart seized. He had come. Their eyes met, and time stilled. But then Kieran's face darkened, because behind her, one of Blackmane's wolves had broken through. Lyra turned, too late, claws slashing for her throat. But before they could reach her, something slammed into the wolf mid-leap, a blur of silver. A wolf, but not a warrior's wolf, a spirit, the same one from her dreams. Glowing with silver flame, eyes like the moon, it tore the attacker to pieces in seconds. Silence fell. Every head turned. Even Blackmane stepped back. Lyra stared at the spirit wolf, and it stared back. Then slowly, it approached and bowed its head. She understood then. It wasn't just protecting her. It was hers. Power rippled through her like a storm. Visions flashed again, not of doom, but of possibility. Kieran's hand in hers. The throne, shared. The kingdom changed. Omega seen, not silenced. The old ways reborn. And her, not just queen by bond, but queen by right. Lyra turned to face Blackmane, the spirit wolf flanking her. "You said I wasn't enough," she called. "That I was broken, rejected. Do you see me now?" Blackmane's snarl twisted into something deeper, fear. "You can't control what's coming," he growled. "I don't need to," she said. "I am what's coming." The two armies clashed, but the battle didn't last long. Blackmane, seeing the tide turn, charged straight for her. One last attempt to seize power, to end the line of sighted Omegas once and for all. Kieran leapt from his horse, sprinting across the field. "Lyra!" Blackmane struck, claws out, teeth bared. Lyra raised her hand. The pendant flared, and the spirit wolf lunged. It hit Blackmane mid-air, and with a burst of silver fire, the two were consumed. For a heartbeat, the sky turned white. Then silence. Ash floated where Blackmane had stood. The war, it seemed, was over. But Lyra collapsed. She awoke hours later. In Kieran's arms, her head against his chest. The dawn had broken. "What happened?" she rasped. "You saved us," he said softly. "You called the old one. You ended him. And the wolf? It's gone. Or maybe it's inside you now." She looked down. The pendant was gone. But burned into her skin was a mark, the same crescent moon from the stone. A new one, this time surrounded by silver flame, the mark of a queen, not chosen by bond, but by blood. Kieran pressed a kiss to her temple. "You endured the night," he whispered. "You bought your freedom." She turned to him. "And now I choose what to do with it." His gaze flickered, fear and hope mingling. "And?" Lyra smiled. "I choose you." As they stood beneath the rising sun, hand in hand, the ashes of war behind them and a new kingdom before them, Lyra whispered, "You promised me freedom. I claim it, not by running, but by rising,